Hello and welcome back. In this portion of the tutorial, we'll be taking the Starfighter that we drew and we'll bring it into Paint.net to colorize it and make it really transform into something awesome. To get started, you should have saved that Starfighter image that you drew as a JPEG. So I'm going to go to Copy. Then I'm going to go back into Paint.net, and I'm going to go to Edit, Paste into a new layer. I'll expand my canvas because it's the only image I'm worried about right now, and there it is. Now it looks simple, it looks rough, but we're going to fix all of that. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to change our background color to orange. So select the background layer, select your fill, and fill the background. If I deselect my layer 2, which is my Starfighter, I've got orange. I'm also going to rename layer 2 Starfighter, just so I know where it is. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to get rid of all of this background mess, all this paper image that I have. Now there's two ways I could normally do this. The first way is I could make a new layer and I could actually trace it using lines. So I could draw it like that and then trace lines over the top of this thing and actually redraw it. Okay, but that's going to take a while. Not to mention the fact that these lines are pretty clean, so I don't really have to worry too much about that. So I'm not going to do a retracing of it. Instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it up using the magic wand. So first I select my magic wand and I ensure that I'm on the Starfighter level, that I'm not on the background, and I'm going to select around the Starfighter. Now here's an important feature that I want to show you. There's a thing called tolerance. What tolerance does is it tells the program how close it wants the line to be when it selects something. And I'll give you an example of how important that is. So right now my tolerance is set to 50. I've selected the outside of the ship. I'm going to hit Control X. Now I've removed all of this background, which is good. That's why we have the orange. See, now I can see this clearly, and I can see clearly where I need to remove any more background. That's why we made this the way we did. So now I want to select the inside of the ship, or inside portion of the ship. So now I'm selecting this part right here, this wing. Now I don't want this weird gray color. I want to make this a completely different color. So all I'm really interested in keeping are these black lines, these outlines of the ship. If I zoom in, okay, and you can see what's happening here, it's selecting all around here. When I take my magic wand, and we're going to go back to tolerance because this is important. If I make my tolerance very low, so my tolerance is only 12%, and I select, you see, it doesn't really touch anything like that. If I make it higher, it gets closer and closer to the line. But 35% tolerance is not much. If I hit Control X now, you see it leaves this outline here, which I don't want. I want a thick black line. So what I'm going to do is while I'm selected, okay, I'm going to bring my tolerance up to as much as I possibly can before it spills over onto my line. So I'm at 51. 54 works. 58 is too much. 55. Okay, that's a little bit too much. I'm going to go back down to 52. 52 looks about right. I'm going to hit Control X. Now I've got a nice clean line. I don't have any of that leftover grayness in the middle. As you can see here, this one's going to be harder to select because it's more faded into this line. So we'll come back to this. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to take out all of the rest of this so that all we have is that wireframe drawing of the actual starship. Just like that. Pretty easy with the magic wand. Okay? Now here's a problem area. Here's a problem area. Okay? But don't worry, we can fix that by just using a regular eraser. Okay? Now, remember I told you this picture is not perfect. And you can see there are some lines here that don't make sense. There's some lines here that don't look right. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in and we're going to fix anything that we don't like, anything that doesn't sit right with the eye. So we're going to make these lines nice and clean. So take some time right now to take your eraser, and always remember, if you mess anything up, you're not sure what you did, you can always undo it right here. And if you have a bunch of steps and you want to go all the way back, you can always go back to your history and you can see exactly where you were and go back to that step. But just remember, unlimited undos, so you can mess up as much as you want. Take your eraser and just clean up this drawing so that it looks exactly how you want it to look. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start actually adding lines to kind of strengthen areas where I see weakness. So I'm going to take my line tool and I'm going to select the thickness that's about what these lines are. So let's figure out what that is. You see how these lines are kind of rough? I'm going to take this and I'm going to strengthen some of these lines just like that. I can also take my circle tool when I have to make a circle. And when you do the engines, just remember you might want to add some certain special effects to it as well. So here I'm going to create more of a three-dimensional look on these engines like that. And maybe I'll reverse the way the back part of this looks. So I'm going to make it more like that. It's up to you. You have your option to do whatever you want, and I'm going to erase this. All right, so now I've got a pretty good Starfighter. Bear in mind that, you know, if you see something wrong, like now that I'm looking at this, I'm realizing that this nose and these laser beams don't really align very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my selection tool. I'm going to select just the nose of this thing. I'm going to do Edit, Cut. I'm going to edit and paste it into a new layer. Now I can move the nose around without messing up the rest of this. And I'm going to make the nose looks like it's pointing up, these lasers and the wings and the body of the plane are kind of pointing down. So the nose is wrong. So to fix that, we're going to go like this, and we're going to move it down like that. That looks better. Maybe even a little bit more, like about there. Okay. Okay, good. Now I'm going to crunch this back down. So layer 3 is going to go back down into the Starfighter layer. And I'm going to take my line and I'm going to reconnect it over here. So I'm going to zoom in on this, make it easier. Okay? And we'll shave a little off of there, a little off of here. And we'll redraw this like that. Take our lasso tool, maybe cut some pieces out here like that. X, there you go. Control X is the delete function. Okay. Now, it's important to note, if you want your drawing to look very, very clean, like the lines are perfect, just make a new layer and just trace it using lines and then delete the original copy of your drawing. Okay. In this case, I want this ship to look kind of like it's, you know, it's been through some battles. It's got some scarring on it. So having the original drawing like this does give it a little bit more character. That's why we did it this way. Okay. But now we've got what amounts to a pretty decent starship. Okay. Now these lasers obviously are going to need some help. We'll deal with that when we get to it. We're gonna make this one color, okay? One solid color. The wings, the body, the engines. To do that, we're gonna need to make a bridge between these sections. So what I'm gonna do is I'll take my eraser and I'll make it smaller. I'll make it about a 2, okay? And I'm going to cut across a little channel, maybe 3, maybe or 4 even, okay? I'm gonna make a little channel here, a channel here, a channel here, a channel here. So now the wings, the engines, the fuselage, the other engine, and the wing on the other side, the front side wing, are now all connected. If I want to make this the same color too, this area here, I'll make a little connection here and I'll make a connection there, okay? Now, when I go to select this, it should select the entire body of the airplane, or the Starfighter. See? I'll take my fill tool, and now we need to figure out what color we want to make this thing. I think I'm going to make mine, red, okay? I'm going to fill it with red. There we go. Okay, I'll zoom out. And that looks like everything that I want selected is selected. The next thing I'm going to do is take my paintbrush, and I'm going to make it big. So I'll make it about a 55. I'll expand my colors out. So now I'm selected for red, and I'll make it darker. We're going to do some shadowing. So I'm going to put some shadow on this side of the engine and the wing. Put some right here on this line. I'll put some on the back of the wing, back of this wing. Okay, and I'll put some down here. That'll give it more of a curved look. See? And then like that on the side. The bottom of the nose, this side, and then down here. Okay? At the same time, I am going to make my brush a little smaller. 15 is a little too small. How about 30? That looks good. And I'm going to bring my red color back up so it's not shaded, so now it's red, or just select red again. And now I'm going to take the S slider, which is the tinting slider. I'm going to add some white to it, make it lighter, right like that. There we go, like that. And then I'm going to run that here. So the areas where there's more light would be right there. Maybe here, across the top of the nose. Okay, just like that. And then I'll zoom in. Take my line tool and I'll make this smaller. So let's move this line size down to 13. That's good. And I'll put one there and one across the top of the engine here, like that. Okay. So now I've got what amounts to a pretty good colorization. Okay. So now I've got color. I'm ready to blend. I'm ready to blur this together so this looks like one consistent color. You can keep it like this if you like. Sometimes these kind of graphics look pretty cool too. So watch what happens. I go to Effects, I go to Blur, I go to Gaussian Blur. But when I go to blur this, you'll notice it gets a little darker than I'd like. Why is it getting so dark? The reason is because it's pulling the color from these black lines. So the black is getting blended into this color and making it darker than I want it to be. How do I fix that problem? Well, the first thing I do is hit cancel. The second thing I do is I go to my edit button here, edit, and I cut. Then I go edit, paste into a new layer. Now I've got a new layer with just the color, see? And I've got a layer with a Starfighter with just the black lines. Now when I go to my layer 3, and I go to Effects, Blur, Gaussian Blur, what I'm going to get is a much lighter, much less affected blur. Okay, like that. Now, I'm going to duplicate this because remember, when you do a Gaussian blur, this becomes weaker. It becomes almost see-through. So I want to make sure that this is a solid color. To do that, I'm going to duplicate layer 3 a couple times. And then I'm going to merge layer 3 back down. And that's it. Now I'm going to leave this layer separate because at some point in time, I may want to reselect this inside of this ship. So I'm going to leave this and I'm going to call this color.